Welcome back. Today, in this explainer, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating, the architecture of intimacy and the psychology of the singular bond. Now, if you've ever felt, completely out of place in a massive crowded room, but perfectly at home just sitting in a quiet corner with one person, well, you're absolutely going to want to pay close attention to this. We're going to discover why preferring one deep friendship over a packed room is definitely not a flaw that needs fixing. Actually, it's a measurable sign of a highly secure, really high-functioning mind. So let me ask you a question to kick things off. Have you ever felt literally almost physically exhausted after just like an hour at a large gathering? But then, and here's the crazy part, you find you can sit and talk half the night to one trusted person without ever getting tired. It's a very specific, kind of weird phenomenon. You go to a networking event or a loud party, and within minutes, your social battery is just flashing red. But you put yourself in a one-on-one setting with someone who genuinely gets you, and boom, suddenly you've got endless mental energy. The thing is, society completely mislabels this behavior. From the outside looking in, people just assume you're shy, or maybe even some antisocial outsider. But when we actually look at the psychological reality, the truth is a whole different ballgame. This preference, it's actually a proven marker of high social intelligence and a deep, deep focus on quality. Seriously, your brain isn't broken. It's just wired to prioritize depth, meaning, and emotional safety over just going through the motions of shallow social rituals. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the social outsider myth, and how we're debunking the antisocial label. Moving along to section 2, let's talk about quality over social rituals, and specifically, the real cost of small talk. You see, for high IQ minds, small talk isn't just a mild annoyance. It feels fundamentally boring and, honestly, incredibly expensive mentally. And why is that? Well, it all comes down to dopamine. For a lot of folks out there, just being at a social event, being seen by the crowd, gives them this neurological thrill. But if you have a complex mind, you just don't get that same dopamine hit from surface-level chatter about the weather or, hey, what are your weekend plans? Instead, your brain is practically craving the reward that only comes from exploring really complex, meaningful, and brand new ideas. Small talk just doesn't foot the bill. That leads us perfectly into section 3, protecting your cognitive bandwidth, or how to manage all that mental energy. This concept right here totally explains your physical reaction to crowded spaces. Think of cognitive bandwidth as the limited amount of mental energy you have on tap at any given second to track things like tone of voice, tiny shifts in body language, or even those invisible group vibes. Now imagine every single person in a room requiring a slice of that bandwidth pie. Because highly aware, socially intelligent people don't just naturally filter out these subtle details like others might, a packed room demands massive, and I mean massive cognitive bandwidth. Your brain is essentially trying to process everyone all at once, which, as you can guess, quickly leads to total sensory overload. So what's crucial here is how your brain brilliantly adapts to all that overload. Ever wonder why it naturally narrows its focus down to just one person? It's kind of like a safety switch. By zeroing in on a single connection, you narrow down your predictive processing, which basically stops your internal threat detection system from completely burning out. Instead of constantly scanning a room full of 50 unpredictable variables, you put yourself in a safe, predictable little loop. And that is exactly what allows for the deep, super focused engagement your brain actually finds rewarding. All right, on to section 4, internal validation over clout, and where we source our self-worth. Now, this introduces a seriously powerful psychological concept called the internal locus of evaluation. Basically, it means you're sourcing your self-worth from within. You aren't relying on external attention, hunting for likes, or chasing the clout of a noisy crowd just to feel important. You simply don't need a massive audience to stand up and announce your existence to the world. All you really need is one person who truly, genuinely sees your identity. That alone is enough to make you feel completely stable, grounded, and validated. Which brings us right to section 5, consistency and guarded empathy, focusing on safe emotional investments. Our past experiences so deeply shape our present need for emotional safety. Have you ever heard of guarded empathy? It's this absolutely fascinating psychological mechanism. It's basically a way of protecting your emotional energy by keeping your guard up until, for absolute sure that it's safe to let it down. A lot of times we develop this when past environments made caring just incredibly costly. Like, say you grew up in a space where you always had to be the reliable one, or maybe your own emotions were just routinely ignored. Well, you learned pretty early on that showing you care comes with a massive price tag. So what did you do? You developed guarded empathy as a shield, keeping yourself from being misunderstood or taken advantage of all over again. Ultimately, what this means is your brain is constantly working behind the scenes, playing defense to protect your emotional energy. Think about it. It just feels so much safer to be seen, clearly, authentically, by one single trusted friend, someone who consistently chooses you, than to risk judgment in some large, unpredictable group where you can't easily hide. Honestly, to your mind, investing in one deep friendship isn't just nice. It is literally the safest, most logical investment you can make for your emotional resources. And finally, let's look at section 6, the power of observation and seeing intellectual humility in action. If you compare the two, the contrast is kind of mind-blowing. In large group dynamics, the interaction is almost entirely ritualistic. It leads straight to that sensory overload we talked about, creating relationships that are super temporary and unstable. And let's be real, the loudest voices always dominate the room. But shift over to a singular bond, and the interaction becomes totally depth-oriented. You get to slip into this amazing state of focused processing, building a connection that's truly consistent and loyal. Instead of trying to shout over the noise just to be heard, your primary action shifts to active observation. You're not just casually hanging out anymore, you're actually decoding the logic, the raw emotion, and the hidden meaning of another human being. It's like solving a really beautiful puzzle. I really want you to internalize this one thought today: truth over trends and depth over drama. Please remember, your preference for a small, tight-knit circle, it is absolutely not a weakness. You aren't somehow missing out on the crowd, and you certainly aren't failing at socializing. Quite the opposite. You are actively choosing to experience the world on a much deeper, far more profound level than most people will ever even take the time to notice. So now that we've unpacked the powerful, really high-functioning psychology behind your social choices, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Who is the one person in your life that truly, fully sees you? And knowing just how incredibly valuable your cognitive bandwidth actually is, how are you going to choose to invest your emotional energy moving forward? Keep that in mind as you navigate your week. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.